which we're going to start doing now. What we're going to do here in the musical portion is we're going to take you into the world of Scuffletown. And Scuffletown is the band that John and I have been for, as he said, nearly 20 years. We don't have kind of an exact start date, but we'll give you a little bit of the background on that a little bit later. But we play, as John mentioned, we played here on Saturday night. It was actually a smaller crowd than usual. There was a big basketball game in town, some other things going on. It's about 35, 40 people in here, which was a nice kind of intimate listening crowd. It was really, we had a ball. And it was actually one of some of the folks who were here said, yeah, that was one of the most fun shows that we've done in a while. We also play lots of other, there's outdoor shows, we do festivals. One of the big things that we do over the last few years has been wineries. There are tons of wineries, as you know, around this area, and for some reason our demographic, our audience really seems to like wineries and wine. So it works for us, and the hour's good, and and we'll talk a little bit because there's a whole network aspect to that as well. But one of the things that we normally do when we're doing this training, a lot of times we're in a place, maybe over at FEI or in other places, we ask people to kind of get their heads out of the training room and into wherever it is that you like to listen to music. So it might be a club like this, or it might be a Friday afternoon in the park, or at your church, or it might be a concert show or in a club somewhere. It might be a field in New York in 1969 with several 100,000 of your closest friends in the mud. And we like to leave that up because we think maybe we were there, we just don't remember it, But we're going to get into the world of Scuffletown. We'll start playing. What you're going to see is a snapshot of what we would do for any of our shows. As we do this, we're going to ask you to kind of have two things in your mind. And I think it's in your packet on page 4, I think. And you don't have to write anything down for this, but it's just to have a little thing at the back of your mind. The first is very general. What do you see happening in the course of the performance that relates to this idea of leadership partnering, of power partnerships? Anything that strikes you that in the course of the performance. And then the other question is a little bit more specific. Who is the leader? Who is the co-leader? And what brings you to that conclusion? So again, you don't need to write any notes or anything, just kind of have those at the back of your mind. We're going to get into the world of Scuffletown. We're going to start with an old blues tune from Robert Johnson. Anybody familiar with Robert Johnson?
Hell yeah.
See some hands and some backs. Oh yeah. Robert Johnson, for those of you who maybe don't know the name, or you have probably heard his music. It has been recorded by many bands throughout over the years. Rolling Stones and Allman Brothers and Eric Clapton and lots of people recorded Robert Johnson's music. He was a Delta blues guitar player from the 1930s, and there's not a lot known about him. He did a set of recordings. It's actually still available. You can go on Amazon and buy a box set of Robert Johnson's original recordings. But there wasn't a lot known about him until recently. There was only one photograph actually that was circulating. But one of the interesting things about Robert Johnson, he was such an incredible songwriter and guitar player that, and particularly the guitar playing aspect, there was a legend about him that he had sold his soul to the devil to learn to play guitar. There's actually a movie about that about 20 years ago called Crossroads, because that was one of his big tunes was Crossroads Blues. So the other thing that we like about Robert Johnson is what's known about the way he died, and that is that he was poisoned by the husband of a woman that he was fooling around with. So, like if you're a blues guy, right? Come on now. Johnny heard that, he said, "That's how I'm going out."
It's a lot more fun than a heart attack.
So we do a lot of Robert Johnson's music, and we love it because it is such an incredible picture. His songs paint just an incredible portrait of things that were going on, particularly in the Mississippi region in the 1930s. And this particular song, we're not entirely sure what the origin and the motivation of this song was, but I think it probably had a lot to do with the fact that in the 1930s there was a big diaspora of people out of the Mississippi region up to Memphis and up to Chicago. The spread of the blues music. But they were looking for work in the Depression era. This is my history teacher side coming out. The history, the Depression era, and then early days of World War II. And they also kind of went out from there to places like California as well. So this song is called "Sweet Home Chicago." Yeah, we think that's where it came from. time. I'm so tired of your tricks. Whoa, baby, don't you wanna go back to that land of California, sweet home Chicago? I'm going to California, won't be back again. I say, whoa, baby, don't you want to go back to that land of California, sweet home Chicago? Back to that land of California, sweet home Chicago. Now we're on the harmonica. Very much.
Really getting too
How's
old
it
for this stuff.
That's his sign for like we got to slow it down now. We get that. So one of the things that happens that when people in our other lives find out that we play music, we get the question all the time, like, well, what kind of music do you play? And it is. I had somebody ask me this morning, and it's hard to answer that question for us because we love. Obviously that roots and blues music, that's a part, particularly this kind of instrumentation, that's a big part of harmonica and guitar history, and we'll talk a little bit about the blues. But we get into everything. I mean, we love to play all different kinds of music, so anything that we can do on the instruments that we play. So one of the things that we do, particularly after a tune like that, Johnny's heart rate is up there, and we got to bring him down, he's giving me the signal, is we'll get into old jazz standard tunes. We do a lot, like the other night when we were in here, it was like quiet kind of jazz club vibe. We did a lot of that the other night. It was fun. So we're going to do one. It's one of our favorite of the kind of American songbook of jazz tunes. It's an old Hoagie Carmichael song. It's been done by a lot of folks, Ray Charles and Willie Nelson. It's called Georgia on My Mind. Georgia,
Help me out here.
the whole day through. It's an old sweet song, keeping Georgia on my mind.
Got better rhythm than most LDS classes every day.
Georgia, Georgia, a song of you, ringing sweet and clear like the moonlight through those pines.
Right, like that.
Other arms reach out for me, and other eyes smile tenderly. In some stranger's face I see the road lead back to you. Georgia, Georgia, there's no peace that I find, but an old sweet song keeping Georgia on my mind. That. Yeah. Other arms reach out to me, and other eyes smile tenderly. In some stranger's leaving Georgia, Georgia on my mind.
Thank
you very much. He was not kidding about the rhythm. We have
Some agencies.
we have experienced, when we work with some individual agencies, I'm not pointing fingers at any particular one.
John, does your face usually turn red like that?
More and more the older I get. It's still fun. I'll kill myself one day doing this probably.
He's just going to implode on stage.
Love that Mark Caraway though. Great job.
Thank you. One of the other places that we get music is we do make up some of our own music, write some songs, and this is one that has been around for quite a while. We did this on our first recording many years ago, and came from my experience working in in the school systems outside of Charlottesville. I mentioned I started in Orange, which is about 25-30 miles outside of town, and then Madison, about the same distance. It's funny because they like to think of themselves as semi-rural, but where I come from, it's like no semi about it whatsoever. It's like, I'm from Tidewater. It's like I came up here and it's like, no kidding, there are more cows than people. And on Friday night, kids go out and push them over. And it turns out to be true. They really do. So one of the things that happens, particularly once you get into administration, of course, is you deal with a lot of kids who are not really invested in their education. And what you hear a lot of is like, as soon as I turn 18, I'm going to walk out the door and you can't do anything. So heard a lot of that over the years, and just kind of took a lot of what I had heard and what I knew about these kids and threw it into a song, and we call it All These Roads. This town don't rise on Friday nights. It stays at home with the TV lights shining through the window shades, enough to make the moonlight fade. So I go riding when I can down these empty streets with my sherry, a beer between her denim thighs, desperation in her eyes. Occurred to me as I ride around that all these roads lead out of town. I work down at the grocery store, packing boxes and mopping floors. There's a man who works with me. He does the same at 63. And if I find a crystal ball, see my future, would that be all? Grocery store, the lumber yard, always scratching and living hard. So I could turn my world around, 'cause all these roads lead out of town. Folks and friends I've known for the 17 years that I've been growing, and they don't seem to know or care that much about the world out there. So you'll find them down in a favorite spot, like an empty field or a parking lot, and they drink and they fight and they call it fun. They wish their luck, get married young. It's hard to see when you're looking down that all these roads lead out of town. sit back and I play their game. The hours drag like a ball and chain. But I'll turn 18 within the year, and you can bet that I'll be leaving here. I'm going someplace with something more than a lumberyard and a grocery store. And I'll just lay that pedal down, 'cause all these roads lead out of town. Very much. Thank you. So much.
Isn't that a great song?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you gotta share in right here.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
That's the first time that's happened. With a beer between your denim thighs.
Uh-oh. We get in trouble for that one.
That's the
TMI.
gosh, yeah. Thank you very much. It's a lot of fun playing that song.
You know, I grew up in rural South Carolina, and I'm telling you, Mark, I understand when you say rural.
Yeah.
And I didn't move out of South Carolina my whole life until 2011.
Wow.
And so to be in Washington D.C. for 2.5 years now, still kind of unbelievable. So that song, really drew me in.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah. Give it up again for Mark Carey.
Thank you very much.
That's a great comment. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
It really has resonated. We actually got a lot of airplay on that song. Got picked up by acoustic radio stations throughout the region, and it was a lot of fun. We got a lot of recognition for it. So, but we're going to talk about why this works so well. But one reason it works so well, a lot of times it's just organic, the right chemistry, but other times you have to be strategic. But Mark is one of the best singer-songwriters in the region, in my opinion. So one more time, just for that song, it got a lot of recognition, I was saying, and one of the things that happened with it, it got picked up on what we call compilation CDs. Radio stations will come and or record companies, they'll pick best songs and put it on a album recording and send it out. And we got picked up on a couple of compilation CDs. We got picked up on this one radio station called WNRN, Best of Virginia Artist. And so it was a real thrill for us to be there. And the real thrill for me was when it came out, we were listed first, and right under us was Dave Matthews Band. We were on top of Dave Matthews. So, and the real reason it was thrilling for me was not because we were on there with Dave Matthews. It was because I was looking for any sort of credibility I could have with my 15-year-old daughter at the time. Say, hey, look me, I'm with Dave Matthews.
Yeah, that worked for about 1 minute.
Dad, you're still a dork.
And then actually, this next song probably is part of the reason that she. We're going to get into. Uncle Johnny is also a songwriter. He writes a lot of the songs that we do as a group. His songwriting is a little bit different. I mean, it's all songwriting is like a process of taking those things that you see and you feel and kind of putting them out there for an audience. But some people delve a little bit deeper and say rather than paying a therapist, they just lay it out for the audience. So that's kind of your role here. But we actually have a whole set of songs that I just call the therapy songs, and for some reason they all end in the word man. I don't know why.
Don't overanalyze it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that, but so tell them about the song.
Oh gosh. Well, one of the things that has happened, we talked about our long relationship, is we have been able to play with some of the great blues artists in the country. When we say blues artists, for us, it's not full band blues. It's usually a duo with a guitar and harmonica player, and they're playing blues the way they played it around the turn of the century and up through the 1920s, 30s. And it's just been a thrill. But one that thrilled me the most was a duo called John Cephas and Phil Wiggins. They were actually just north of Charlottesville. They were around D.C., but they were in Virginia, rural part of Virginia, what they call, and The reason we loved playing with them is they were Grammy nominees, Smithsonian Heritage Award winners, toured internationally. But they represented East Coast blues, Piedmont blues. You're probably very familiar with Delta blues. Delta blues gets a lot of recognition. It's kind of like, oh, my wife's run away. Yeah. My dog's dead. I'm drinking whiskey. Life is hard. Oh yeah. Great musical American music. But there was a musical form that developed in the African American community and the rural community just north of Charlottesville, and it ran all the way down through to Georgia on the eastern side of the Blue Ridge Mountains and that eastern side of the Allegheny Mountains, and which is known as the Piedmont area of Virginia, Piedmont area of the Carolinas, and it was called Piedmont Blues. And it was the voice of the African Americans in that rural Virginia and their experiences. But unlike Delta blues, it was influenced by mountain music, which was really based in Scotch Irish music.
Yeah.
So it was
much
peppier.
bouncier, yeah. But still had kind of the same themes, you know.
Yeah.
My dog died, my wife ran away, and now I'm drinking whiskey. You know, it feels good to be down, you know.
Yeah.
But it was dance music. It was kept everybody moving. There was a lot of fiddling with that.
It made you feel good about feeling bad.
Yeah.
That was the purpose of it, you know. They'd get together in juke joints and farmhouses and community, and they'd dance to Piedmont blues. I mean, it was a great tradition in this area. And so John and Phil carried the tradition. We did multiple shows with them. And then we did the last show about 8 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, John was he was in his 80s at that point. And they were just about to head off to Czechoslovakia.
They were good.
But he was in rough shape, and he was in backstage. He was like, "Oh, Johnny, I'm tired," and he's got a thing of oxygen in one hand and E&J brandy in the other.
That guy was.
And he got out there and killed it on the stage.
Oh, he did.
And he passed away about 3 or 4 months
Very
after.
shortly. Phil Wiggins is his harmonica. He's still playing around D.C. and Phil is one of the best harmonica players in the world. I mean, in the world. And I had the opportunity to study under him, which was a thrill. Way back about 25 to 30 years ago, I got to study with Phil Wiggins, which was so exciting for me. And then what became full circle was really exciting. I got to perform with him 15, 18 years later, you know, and circle back on the stage, and it was such a thrill. But when I was a student of Phil, this question came up. It's a very legitimate question. You know, Phil, who has the right to sing the blues? Blues is grounded in the African American experience in the South. You know, it was their way of telling stories and bringing communities together as part of their culture. But then it became very popularized and became the essence of rock and roll in America. And everybody plays blues. I mean, everybody plays blues. And Phil gave the best answer to that because he said, Johnny, he says, you know, if you really love the music and you understand the culture and history of the music, you need to be a link in the chain. And you got to go out and play it, but you got to tell people about it so they understand the history and culture of it as well as enjoy the music. So it was a great response. Ironically, not probably 10, 15 years ago, that same question came up on the internet. Who has the right to sing the blues? And they had two categories, those who did, those who didn't. Under those who did not have the right to sing the blues, they said, if you're driving a brand new SUV, you got snowboards and skis on your car going to Wintergreen Resort, you ain't got the right to sing the blues. You know, but if you got an old Cadillac that you're almost living in, then you got a right to sing the blues. Did a lot with cars. They did a lot with names. None of this category where they said, if your name is Jonathan, my God-given name, and you have a 401k savings plan, I can sing the blues about that now. But in those days, they said you do not have the right to sing the blues. And I looked and I said, well, that is not fair. You know, I get down, my name is Jonathan, I have a 401, but I get down, I get in that space where it's dark, and yeah, I get the blues. I do get the blues. And so it inspired this song. It's called Dorky Little Man Blues.
Oh.
And I'm going to play it on what Marc calls the Dorcaphone. I got a microwave oven, 3 color TVs, a 2-car garage, a few college degrees, but I'm shaking in my Birkenstock shoes. I'm a dorky little man. I got the dorky little blues. Man, these things hurt, let me tell you. I got a big stereo, SUV car, John Deere tractor to mow my backyard, but I'm feeling little dazed and confused. I'm a dorky little man. I got the dorky man blues. Let me tell you right here at C-Mill Coffee. I said, hey there, people, see you looking at me, but I'm looking back, and what do I see? You know it's kind of funny, cause I know it's true. Some of you look kind of dorky too. So, hey, what us got nothing on me, cause I can sing the blues of dorky misery, and I'm feeling a little dazed and confused. Well, I'm a dorky little man. I got them dorky man blues right here. Here we go on the dorkaphone. But I'm looking back, and what do I see? You know it's kind of funny, cause I know it's true. Some of you look kind of dorky too. So, hey, but what else? Got nothing on me, cause I can sing these blues of dorky misery, and I'm shaking, look at these, in my dance ghost shoes. These things are dorky. I can get you some, kid. A dorky little man. I'm a dorky little blues. Let me see it right here in the eye. Let me tell you, I'm a dorky little man. Well, I got them dorky little blues. Gotta live these blues, sing these blues. Let me tell you, I'm a dorky little man. I got them short little dorky. I'm 5'6" and getting shorter as I get older. Got credit card debt. My mortgage ain't worth nothing anymore. Man, this recession's hit me hard. Oh my God, 2 kids I just put through college. I am down in them dorky blues. Let me tell you, little man. Balloons, yeah. Thank you.
About that.
I feel better about myself. Thank you.
Come on, you gotta admit that takes a lot of guts. Right? Yeah. Another hand, John Whitlow. We need to tell you a couple of things about that song, just because, as we mentioned, we've been doing this training for about 10 years, and we should just warn you straight up. We have heard consistently over the years that is the song that will stick in your head for the next week. We just apologize straight. You'll be walking down the hall at FEI, you'll be going, somebody say, hey, what are you singing? Not going there. No. Okay. But the origins of that song is interesting. John showed up one night over my house with the dorkaphone, which is actually, it's a real instrument. It's called a melodica. But, you know, I looked at it and said, oh, plastic keyboard you can blow into. You know? Where'd you get that? He said, late night TV. He was on fire. He's like, oh, man. He was so happy. I was like, great, okay. And he said, I got this great song. And he starts going through this song. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. No, I think we should do this. I said, okay. We had what turned out to be probably the biggest show we've ever played in Charlottesville. We were doing one of these things where it was a bunch of bands for it was a stroke awareness and fundraiser over at the University Research Center there, and there were thousands of people there. And so we had about a 45-minute set, and that's where we chose to test drive that song for the first time. And at the end of the song, we come off the stage, and there are all these people waiting at the back of the stage, and I'm thinking, oh, we're in trouble now. And they were like, where can we get that song? Do you have the words? Have you recorded that? And it has become one of our most
Hey.
requested songs.
A lot of dorky people in Charlottesville. You'll see them get on the mall. They wear shoes like this. We meet together on Monday nights.
Just kids
12-step
hate those
programs.
shoes.
Yeah, the kids hate these shoes. So, yeah, dorky support groups. They're all over town.
All right. All right, we're going to do one more here. This is an old Bob Marley song, which so that's probably redundant because there's no new Bob Marley song. It's interesting, you know, when you're around high school kids, they think that they discovered Bob Marley. Mr. Carraway, have you heard it? It's like, yes, and I'm not telling you the circumstances. But we love reggae and world music, and this is one of our favorite Bob Marley tunes called "No Woman, No Cry." I remember when we used to sit down in the government yard of Trenchtown, yeah. We were observing all those hypocrites. We would mingle with the good people we met. Good friends we've had, good friends we've lost. Future, you can't forget your past. Dry your eyes while I say yes. And no woman, no cry. And no woman, no cry. So hush, little sister, don't shed no tears. And no woman, no cry. Up in the reggae harmonica. I remember we used to sit down in the government yard of Trenchtown, yeah. Georgie would lay up a firelight. Its love would burn on through the night. We would cook cornmeal porridge now, which I'll share with you. 'Cause my feet is my only courage now. I just have to push on through. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright now. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright now. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright now. Everything's gonna be alright. And no woman, no cry. And no woman, no cry. So little sister, don't shed no tears. And no woman, no cry. Thank you, John.